Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of A Ball and a Chance. I'm your host, Angela Lewis, and I have another very special guest today, Jeremy John Kaplan. He is an artist and a ball player, and we met in New York at the Hoop Bus. So, on this episode, we're going to talk Hoop Bus. We're going to talk about his new art installation. We're going to talk about, of course, the New York Knicks. So, let's hop into it. Jeremy, will you share a little bit about your background as an artist and ball player?
Yeah, for
How's that
sure.
work?
First off, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate you reaching out and inviting me to be a guest. Really excited to chop it up. Um, my background as an artist and a ball player, they both started when I was in my adolescence. My pathway to basketball, um, started very young on the playground. I grew up in Philadelphia. And similarly, my pathway to art kind of grew out of early passion for graffiti. Those two areas of my life have held great importance from then until now and kind of, for the foreseeable future.
Let's talk about this graffiti. When we spoke before, we talked a little bit about it. Anywhere you travel in the world, there's graffiti everywhere, but you never see the artist. So how did you develop a love for graffiti? Like, where does that come from?
You know, I have an older sister, and she had some friends that were into it when I was, I think as young as fifth grade. And it just kind of put my antennas up that,
Mhm.
I rode a city bus to then connect to a subway to get to school in the morning, and I would see it everywhere. And then it was like when I did have a face behind the name and then I would see that name around town, something about that seemed really alluring to me. Yeah. And I think, it's still to this day, although I'm not active, I still really do believe in it. And, it's interesting because a lot of people want to make that distinction between, graffiti and art, and graffiti art being like, oh, when they take their time and paint on this legal wall, I really like it. But when they do this thing over here, I don't like it. And to me, like the human spirit is calling out to be recognized, and we're inundated with advertisements and signage everywhere we go. And I think that anytime I see graffiti, I obviously there's some, that can be borderline disrespectful or very disrespectful, but I think at large that like desire for a person to be recognized and seen is found throughout human history. I remember visiting Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and there was like a second floor, like a balcony level where there would have been, kids or young people that were like carving their name into this like marble railing. Um, and it was a mosque, and then it was a church, and then, it's like regardless of your background or your faith or who you are, there's always been this kind of like underlying, want and desire to like to have your name like be there and be visible, long after you're here on this earth. So I think graffiti artists are just kind of continuing that tradition, and I think it's really valid.
I love that. I've never heard anyone describe it in that way. It's a desire to have your name and your art to be seen and be visible. That's really powerful.
Yeah. So it was really like, exhilarating, right? Like I remember going to the train yard for the first time, or like having some of the, more established, experienced writers like take me on a route, kind of walking me through how, and the philosophy about how they deal with it, and et cetera. And yeah, it's like it was like a real, way to get like deeply, deeply involved
Mhm.
in something that, you know, it wasn't what I continued to pursue, but it really set the foundation. I know a lot of artists that are working today that, they have their background, in academia, et cetera. And I think for a while I kind of was questioning whether or not I should like put forward that my entryway was
Mhm.
this, but then I just own it. Like that's the authentic truth. Like you know, I had access at a young age to like through my family, like I would see the museums in Philly we would go to the Barnes Foundation. So I was like able to understand art in the context of history, but it wasn't until graffiti that it became like a participatory thing for me.
So you started with graffiti. You started there, but your art has expanded. I want to talk about this image behind you. We all know this image is classic. So talk a little bit about how that came to be, and then we're going to dive into your new installation, but I can't stop looking at that.
It was actually it wasn't very intentional that I had this as my backdrop. That image is from a series I call Correlations. I have done these like mashup collages where it's moments in art history sort of matched with moments in sports history. And so that's that classic image of Michael Jordan laying on the shoulder of Scottie Pippen after the flu game. And there was something
Mhm.
really beautiful about the posturing of it. And yeah, so I mashed it up with the Madonna and Child. Um, I enjoy the correlations.
Incredible
It's not the
mashup.
thing that
Yeah,
I
that's
like
so cool.
push out the hardest, but I do enjoy it. But they are just kind of, it's not meant to be like super deep. It's meant to just kind of like remind you that to me, it was like to both raise the profile of some of these moments in sports history to be in the canon of art history, but also make art history a little bit more accessible to people that maybe aren't paying attention to it.
Yes, because some people will look at this and they will know immediately, oh, that's Mona Lisa and Child, of course.
Mhm.
And then others like me are going to look at that and say, oh, that is Jordan and Pippen. That's the first thing I saw. But then I was like, well, who are the other people? So I'm
That
glad
was
you said it.
a series
Yeah,
that I
I love
started in
that.
the pandemic that, was like I didn't have full access to my studio and I started just like making digital collage for the first time and then I made them into print. Yeah, I have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah. Art is supposed to be fun. And you've been having a lot of fun with your new installation so you received the Socrates Sculpture Park Fellowship. What is that? And tell us what you've installed.
Uh this is really great timing, Angela. Thank you for, aligning this. Actually last night I attended the gala. So the Socrates Sculpture Park was founded by a, incredible artist, Mark DeSuvero, who's really passionate about public art. And so he had this incredible building, still does, um, that is like on the waterfront in Long Island City in Queens, and adjacent to where his studio building was, there was this like dump site that was like overlooked, kind of an industrial wasteland kind of a thing. And 40 years ago, him and a group of other artists and his colleagues or collaborators um, took it upon themselves to take care of that property so that they could display some of their work. And that was 40 years ago. It has since become a public park. It is part of the New York City Parks system. And 30 years ago, they started an artists fellowship. So one of the ethos is, in addition to, like this idea of shared space, but also radical transparency into the artist's process. And I was really, really, really grateful to receive the fellowship because it really aligns with what my sort of philosophy about where I'm at as an artist and where I would like to be in the future. Um, I really appreciate the sort of art institutions. I worked as an arts worker for 20 years, but there was something that was like unsatisfying about only a smaller slice of the population will go into some of those buildings and see those works. Whereas I feel
Mhm.
strongly about bringing that kind of work to people directly and bring it to the neighborhoods. So this park is about it. So yeah, I've been working now. The the proposals were due at the end of the year, and then sort of at the top of the year, they went through the like juried process. This year, as part of the anniversary, they did artists choosing artists. So I was nominated by a incredible artist and friend of mine, Hank Willis Thomas, who I count as a mentor, and he's part of the alumni. And there was 10 artists selected, and myself and two others were chosen to be the first three of the cohort. So it's my work is, I'd say it's like 90% done. It's not quite finished. I have
Okay.
until the 17th when documentation will take place, and then the 21st of June is the opening. And then the work will be on view for 2 years, through 2028. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Secondly, to be nominated by artists and to be selected by artists to get one of the fellowships, that's really special and such an honor. That's huge.
You know, I worked for Hank for 2 years. I worked with him for like 7 or 8 before then. And he's always been really encouraging to me. And yeah, I thought it was a tremendous honor. And one that I really, I don't take for granted. And I really want to honor um, the fact that I was selected, and
Mhm.
try to make the most of the opportunity.
Well, just the little bit that you shared with me sounds incredible. Are you able to share what it is, or do we have to wait until it's officially
Uh,
done
we can
to
talk
talk
about it.
about
It's
it?
it's been, yeah. I mean, the cool part about that
Okay.
radical transparency thing is that it's there right now. You could go to the park and see it.
Okay.
There's a bit of caution tape in front of it that people aren't fully engaging with it yet. But it's very much physically there, as well as they used my rendering as the announcement, so people have seen it. I've yet to like really share at large, because I do want there to be a bit of a reveal to those that haven't. But that's forthcoming,
Okay.
so I'm happy to talk about it. So
Okay.
I have a project that we started in 2005, with another fantastic artist, Michael M. Kaler. He's actually my introduction to Hank and Hank's mother, who's a powerhouse curator and author and photographer herself, and just a beacon in the art world, Deb Willis. So um, my my friend studied with Deb, um, and his work has primarily been in photography. He's also an educator in Philadelphia. Together, we started the Gold Nets Project. So we started, just by identifying that there was a need, right? We were in these public parks. We could address something that meant a lot to all of us that were actually, using that space. And we were young. And so we had been doing some like events, some artist salons, um, and so we decided to do fundraiser for us to be able to purchase. I think we started with 75 nets that we then spray painted them gold. We started with some chain nets, that when they deteriorate, they feel a little unsafe. So we didn't want to be responsible for that. So we went with the nylon nets after that. And it was something that I kept kind of returning to throughout the years. We would do it here or there. And then I think in 2019, 2018, I formulated my studio practice in 2014, with a real focus on this intersection that I feel like I've resided at my whole life. And I was using the nets, and kind of touching on the project, but I was really doing it in this insular way in my studio. And I was like, I got to get back out there. So one day I had an open studio, and a bunch of people came through, and I like wanted to kind of make a performance of it by going and putting up a net in the park nearby where my studio is. And the response that I got in the park that day, was just awesome from the people that were there. And I had also gotten a really great response from my open studio, but there was something that took place that day that was like, as much as I love creating these objects that I can belabor over, I'm like, I really love making an impact. So I kind
Mhm.
of went really hard, for a year or two after that, and I collected like upwards of 200 ripped nets in the process of exchanging them. So I had this concept for a sculpture for a long time that was two baskets that are connected as a hammock using the ripped nets. So I haven't counted how many I've placed on there though thus far. I still have a few to add, but there are two hoops. One of which is like that gooseneck. Oh, did I lose you? I lost you there. We back?
Yeah, that's weird. We are back. All right.
All right.
So
I
can we
was
start back at
Yeah. Tell me where to start.
gosh, you were just going into that there are two hoops.
Uh-huh. Yep, yep. So, I really wanted to, you know, give the I've collected and stewarded over these ripped nets now for several years, some of which were, from the origins of the project, and I always had envisioned something to be done to preserve them and honor them. So this idea of connecting with a hammock, there's two hoops. One is like the gooseneck pole and that scallop shaped backboard that are, kind of ubiquitous with like schoolyards and other public hoops. And then the other is like this square channel perforated steel backboard that's a rectangle, and so they're kind of these duality of hard and soft, and they're on a installed perpendicular rather than parallel, um, which is very much to emphasize that I think of them like neighbors. They're not like oppositional forces. They're connected, but they don't share a perspective, right? We're not looking in the same directions. We're looking, in opposite directions, but we have this, shared goal. So yeah, that I I feel great about where it is in the park. I'm eager to be all the way finished. But at the gala last night, there's a gentleman who works at the park, and his name is Terrence, and I've always felt like, sometimes the like docents and the security guards in museums, they're the ones that actually spend the most time with the art. So their opinions of it is like, the most valuable or equally valuable to the academics and the curators, etc. And Terrence just gave me some feedback last night that like, it was just so encouraging that he had a real sincere and honest read on the work and really felt it. And he's like, takes care of the whole park. He's like, he takes care of the grounds. And he was like, I'm going to make sure nobody messes with it. And it was like, wow, like that, that was kind of worth it all. Like that, the fact that this is something that he's going to have to live with in his weekly and daily life, and that he really understood, and spoke about it in a really sincere way, and not necessarily using the like art speak jargon. Like I mean, he was like, he's very, very intellectual man, but it was just like, he just felt it like sincerely. And I am grateful for that. And that was kind of like, okay, it's not done, but it's being felt in a manner that I really support.
That's tremendous, and I think there's a level of vulnerability that happens when you're an artist, regardless of what you create. You don't know how people are going to respond. You know what your intention is, right? You have this intention for the art, but then when someone gets it in the way you intended, it's like, okay, this is exactly what I was trying to get across. So
Exactly.
that's beautiful. Major
Well, you're
kudos, and
definitely
it'll be there for
exposed.
2 years.
Yeah, it's there for 2 years, and the park is open 7 days a week, from sunup to sundown, or I think maybe 7 a.m. until right before the sun goes down. And part of the fellowship is that they have on-site fabrication studios. They have some woodworking and metalworking, as well as like some other spaces that am I have access to. So I'll continue to utilize those facilities to create and do some programming opportunities as well.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Well, I will definitely put all of that in the show notes, the location of the park and all of that so people can go and see it.
That's
And
great.
I want to shift a little bit now to
Yeah.
the Hoop Bus, which is where we originally connected. So I have to share this little story. I'm in New York speaking at NYU, a David Hollander's class at NYU, and Nick, I think this is his name, who started Hoop Bus. Nick
Mm-hmm.
is in the class. Coco is in the class. She works with Hoop Bus. And they tell me that there is a watch party in Brooklyn. So NYU is where NYU is. And I wanted to be near Madison Square Garden. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming wherever the Hoop Bus is. I'm coming. The basketball guys must love me. It was like game 3 of the finals, the first round when New York was playing Atlanta. And so I leave NYU. My friend and I go to Madison Square Garden to be on the outside watch party. Then we go and grab food, and it's like we have to get to Brooklyn. We have to get to Brooklyn as soon as possible. We get there, game is over, and we turn the corner and we hear this bus starting up. The headlights are like in our eye, and you're the only one there. And I'm like, no, wait, don't leave, please, please don't leave. I know you don't know me, but then I told you everything that I just shared. And I'm like, I had to come see the Hoop Bus. And so thank you. Publicly, thank you for not saying, no, I'm ready to go home. It was like midnight at that point. So thank you for waiting. And you're like, well, you got to make a shot before you can even get on the bus. So you came off. I made a shot, of course. And then we had this great conversation. And so will you share about how you connected with the Hoop Bus and what it means to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that oddly, that I think that was the last time they lost. They've been winning ever since then, as they've won 12 games in a row. If we're right on that math, that was game 3, it might have even been that might have been the first one of the win streak. But
It
as
was
a full side,
early. It was super early.
I think we've all had that experience with the bus, and I think those that get the opportunity to, are drivers, and we're the ones that kind of have this responsibility over it. We still really value that experience of it. Obviously, we have our, partners and our community partners and our priorities, etc. But to me, the work is the bus is at its best as a social sculpture, and that happens when people have their first introduction to it and their first sight of it. Um, so I saw you and your friend walking up, and I can tell you were into it, and that those are still the moments. Those are still the kind of most important moments for the bus. So my involvement came, Nico is somebody that I had been following for many years and was introduced to through a mutual friend, Dan Peterson of Project Backboard. And um, I met him in LA, and we went to the Watts Oasis together. And then he took me to, I think it's the Watts Empowerment Center. And I was just really inspired by the guy. He really exudes this like just basketball love energy that is like completely contagious. And at the time, the Hoop Bus was like a napkin drawing at best. And he's such a ambitious like visionary guy that he was like, I'm gonna put this thing together. And fast forward to 2021, my cousin Tobias was moving to Venice, independently of any relationship to the Hoop Bus or Nico. But he had done some work with me for my project where we had kind of taken it upon ourselves to restore some game lines and refresh a court in Philadelphia that I grew up playing on. Um, and so I knew, Tobias is like a absolutely brilliant young man that like is also equally ambitious, and I knew he was like ready to apply himself to something. And so when he was moving to Venice, I was like, oh, you got to link with this guy. He's like seems like he's like the mayor of Venice. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I think they posted because Nico started Venice Ball, the like outdoor summer league that happens on the boardwalk there, and is always like a amazing scene. The day that I was there, they had like a two DJs and a host, and Hezzy God was putting on a show, but then at halftime there was a guy that did like a yo-yo performance. It's a total carnival, but it's like really, really high quality entertainment for anyone that wants to come and sit next to the beach. So when Tobias moved there, he was like, "Oh, I think I saw that they had posted an internship. I think he maybe had even applied." And I was like, "Oh, let me message Nico." And Nico got back to him right away. And Tobias was at one point, kind of running Venice Ball. But I like to say like kind of cream rises to the top. Like this, young guy was in it to win it and applied himself. And fast forward a few years later, he's now the executive director of the Hoop Bus, which I think was that responsibility was kind of given to him, meant to be temporarily, and it's now been a couple of years, and he's really helped grow it and maintain it and bring new initiatives, etc. So I was I was leaving working with Hank Willis Thomas and was going to focus on being freelance, and in a lot of ways looking to change my orientation, not away from the art world necessarily, but just, kind of trying to incorporate more of this impact work that I kind of really felt at home doing. And the Knicks and the Hoop Bus had 1 year of collaboration, and the second year that the Knicks were inviting us back, um, Tobias and Nico were like, "Look, we want to keep the bus in New York after that. Like, will you help be a captain?" We also have a guy named Giovanni who Gio is been my co-captain the last 2.5 years, and him and I like have balanced it all out, and we like to say that the bus is a joy spreading machine, and we are professional joy spreaders, and like we all really do take that responsibility really seriously. And whether we're doing a school assembly, or we're doing a 3-on-3 tournament or a clinic, or we're just pulling up at your crosswalk, we I know that it is this like imaginative experience that is really valuable to those that experience. And either if you see us coming, maybe you're familiar, you've seen it online, or you've never thought about anything like this before. And either way, it's this exciting, like when you're behind the driver's seat or when you're behind the steering wheel and you see how people are reacting to it, young and old, all walks of life. They'll pull out their phone or they'll do this shot motion. It just is really encouraging us to keep going. So this obviously, so this is now my third year with this Knicks partnership, and they got a little bit farther each time, and now on um, Wednesday was game one of the finals, and they came back from a 14 or 15 point deficit to have Jalen just do Jalen things in the fourth quarter, and he hit that little bump fade that had no business going in, and the
Mhm.
whole city turned up. So uh the energy is like super palpable right now, and tonight is game two. We're at a watch party back at Central Park, and we've been to a few watch parties up there at Summer Stage, and I really love that locations. It's really pleasant, and the like experience of watching it on the big screen in this outdoor venue is awesome. But then we drive through the city, to get back. The bus lives in Brooklyn, so we take it on a little mini parade, and when they're winning like they have in the last 12 games, it's really exciting. And
It
yeah,
is.
we had a moment the other day which was really funny, where we were driving down. They don't really want us to go around Madison Square Garden, and we respect that, but we want to, kind of go and see some of those fans too. We don't need to add to like the whole total chaos, but we like to kind of be on the outskirts of it. And we were, mobbed by this group of people, and we were filming some stuff, and we were playing, and like, but we're blocking traffic, and we try, we want to be somewhat respectful, where like I think it's really exciting for the city when we do that. So, we have a little bit of leeway, but at the same time, we don't want to like, be too,
Yeah.
you know, too disruptive. So these trucks were beeping at us, and then these cops come over, and they seemed like they were, you know, being kind of aggressive, just trying to get us, like, shut everybody up, telling me to drive. I'm like, you know, there's literally people hanging off I'm like, I can't really just go, even though you're pushing me along. Like, so it was this like tense moment as we rolled through this intersection. But then on the other side of the intersection, there was a parking spot, like a legal spot for us to pull over. Um, so we did, and it was like you know, didn't know how it was going to go, how it would be received by the cops. But it went from being this like tense kind of pressure cooker moment to then the cops started shooting and playing with us. They were just
So
trying to get
cool.
get the flow of traffic back on, but they were feeling it too. And we've been really lucky here in New York with the response of law enforcement when we are, you know, kind of pushing the buttons a little bit, that they know it's all out of love and positivity, and you know, we mean no harm to anyone, and we're like, you know, just kind of, and especially when we are carrying the New York Knicks brand, like, you know, it just means so much to this city.
Oh, it does. Thank you for sharing how this moment came to be for you with the hoop bus. It is the coolest thing. Is spreading love and joy through basketball. It is the most when so it is the most it's so pure. I think that's what I love about it. I grew up playing in the park with my brothers and whoever showed up at the park that day. And the hoop bus feels like a park that shows up to you, like, and people are playing 1-on-1, 3-on-3, you're doing trick shots, you're just hooping. Or when I met you, you told me about a program that was happening at Liberation High School in Coney Island. Look, I'm from St. Louis, I live in Dallas. There are no I don't know subways and how to get places. I was like, I'm going to Coney Island tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know where it is. I've never been, but I am going because I want to see the hoop bus in action. And Jeremy, I met Gio and the whole crew, and it was so much fun. There was the DJ, so half of us are dancing on the side. The principals and the students are playing, and it was just so much joy. And of course, met Jazz with the bright female ballers. Check out the episode a few episodes ago. I interviewed Jazz as well.
Very
So,
cool.
yep,
I
her
didn't catch
episode just dropped recently,
Oh, nice. I'll
and
definitely
so
listen.
she Jazz is incredible with all her
Mhm.
trick shots. She's a street baller. Jazz is killing
She's a
them
bucket.
out there. She is, and so I just love what you all are doing. And the hoop bus that you mentioned is branded Knicks, and so it I think all the players' numbers are on the windows. It is the coolest bus. It's a school bus that is painted in honor of the Knicks because of the partnership, and so it's phenomenal. I love, love, love what y'all are doing.
Well, I think that's a great example, that you talk about Liberation High and Jasmine's program, because Jasmine is somebody that's in New York that has been one of our, like, activators. You know, she's a bucket,
Mhm.
you know, sh she's very surprising. The people that she plays against, they're not expecting that from someone that looks like her. So there's this, like, thing that unlocks when she's balling. So she had come to another school visit before our Knicks partnership, was reignited, and, mentioned to us that she had been doing this program in Coney Island, and if we would have the opportunity. And because that is really how we love to show up, right? For those that have contributed to us and are like an integral part of us, we like to go and show up for their community too. And so we were really happy to stick that one with Jazz, but that is like a methodology for us. You know, it's like our guys and girls that are riding on the bus. Like, if you have something that's happening in your community with your group, we want to be able to show up and amplify that, because it is this like synergetic thing. And you describe like that scene of, you know, somebody getting buckets on the crosswalk or trick shots. Like, you know, I've really been thinking about it lately that we are kind of like carving out like a new genre of the sport, right? Like, you know, I think about it in relationship to skateboarding. You know, there was like, you know, there's people that were skating half pipes and quarter pipes and pools, and that was skateboarding until street skating kind of came and people were skating rails and steps and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of the equivalent. Like, you could play one-on-one in a gym. You could be the best player in one-on-one in the gym all day. You come play one-on-one in the bus on a crowded street with everybody yelling.
Mhm.
Maybe there's a pothole and they're like, it's a completely different circumstance. And it is really exciting to people that, are getting exposed to it. But even those of us that like are now, been around it a long time, like the excitement doesn't dim.
It never ends because I think what's so amazing and joyous is you don't know who's gonna be there on a given day. And so the the day that you don't know who's gonna be there, you don't know what shots they're gonna make because trick shots are real and everything goes, right? So the trick shot is really based on what's around. That night that I came to the hoop bus with you, the building was right there, and you're like, "Hey, let's try this shot." And you like threw the ball 50 feet in the air and it went in. I'm like, how do you even I could barely get the thing up. But so what I love about hoop bus is creativity is boundless when it comes to basketball. It almost feels a little reminiscent of how N1 made us feel when
Hmm.
they just tried things and you were like, "Oh, that's so cool. Let me try." So hoop bus, you can anything goes. You can try anything and that makes it special.
Yeah. I mean, I was just having a conversation the other day about, are athletes artists? And I don't know if it applies to all athletes, but to basketball players specifically that do consider themselves to be artists. I know there was recently Kyrie Irving was talking about he's an artist, and it's like if your intention is to, create something that didn't exist before, and you're doing it with a huge level of intentionality, and you're working on it, and you're working to expand it and get better at it. Like I, who can tell you that's not art? That sounds like art
Or
to me. And the bus especially is that. I mean, I love like those kind of environmentally aware trick shots because
mhm.
to me, that's like it's exciting and we can kind of refresh it anytime we're at a new spot. But you bring up and one, I think a lot of us were super inspired by that era. And that's how we play the game. That's how the style associated with it, the kind of how you conduct yourself, the like mannerisms, the shit talking for
Yeah,
what's the
all of
language,
it's legal.
all of that. And I think to your point, this kind of dovetails back to your point about you never know who's going to be there. So the other night, um, we are doing these like kind of impromptu little one-on-one sessions in the middle of the street. One of our, kind of frequent like colleagues or teammates is a guy named Leaky Roof. And
Okay.
he's incredible. Like he really moves different than a lot of players I've ever seen. Just like his kind of, the way that he like rhythmically dribbles, he really like dances on them. He's putting on a show in the middle of the street. People don't necessarily know who he is. He has his own signature model of and one shoes. Like he is a very important figure in the landscape of street basketball. But to those onlookers, they're just seeing a guy that's moving different than anybody they've seen before. And that's the art where you're like, I always emphasize when we're with students and kids, right? Like we really like to tell them like at one point this was somebody's crazy idea. And then they made it.
Yes.
And now there's 10 of them. And so it's like whatever your crazy idea might be, even if people are telling you like, how's that going to work? Like, do the thing, and then you have evidence. They built one bus in 2020. They took it across the country, and people responded so much to it that we're here now, 6 years later, and it's like, I still think we're like kind of a grown out of our toddler and now we're kind of like a little bit into our kid stage and we want to grow and we keep making impacts here but we want to build on them even further. We've kind of started to focus in on some other initiatives and kind of look at the longevity of the bus and how we build more like lasting relationships with communities and mentorship programs, etc. um but yeah,
Yeah,
it's still that
it
it's
is
that
phenomenal. Yeah, it was someone's idea, and I remember during COVID, they took down all the hoops. They took down hoops at the parks, and I remember seeing the hoop bus on Instagram, and I'm like, "That is so cool. That is amazing that you can hoop anywhere and have the hoop bus come to you." And so it's
One of
really
our
beautiful. I wish nothing but
I like to refer to him as the Michael Jordan of the hoop bus. Elvin Rodriguez, aka E5, was just telling me a story. Um, he's a pro player, an actor, and a model, and he was telling me he got a role in a film um, called Hustle that was starring Adam Sandler, and it was directed by a guy from Philadelphia named Jeremiah Zagar. And I asked him, like, oh, because a lot of times people will recognize him from that. I had saw the film before I met him, um, and I asked him, like, how did that come about? And he told me that, he's from Harlem originally. He lives in LA now, but he was living in Harlem. This in the middle of the pandemic. He found a court that had a rim that was up. And so he was there and he was climbing the fence, scaling the fence just to go in there and get some buckets. And I, at that time, like it really affected me pretty deeply because I had been putting up nets all over the place. When they took the rims down, they took my nets with them, like hundreds of them. And it really affected me deeply. So when he was telling me this story, I was just so moved by it because it's like in that moment when he's climbing the fence and he's like willing to, accept consequences because this is the thing that drives him. That then is the moment that he is like deserving of, and that's the moment that somebody asked him. Somebody was on the street. They knew about the film. There was casting something. Boom, boom, boom. I don't remember all the details of the story. I just remember that he said it was like while he was climbing the fence, and it made perfect sense that like, yes, that is why he was willing to do that. And he's incredible. He's like the, top tier of our, hoop bus activators talent. Cause the guy just lives and breathes, the ethos of the bus. He's like just as good in those moments playing one-on-one in the street as he is with the kids, as he is with a random stranger that comes up off. And, and these are the characters that are, it create the
Mhm.
landscape of the loop bus that are like make us all, I like to think like it takes one to know one, but I'm always like in
Yeah.
awe of some of the, the level of talent and just kind of like, how I I'm not as good at like keeping it on all the time, right? Like I have to turn it on, like my neutral speed is can be somewhere else, but some of these guys that just like Gio's another one, it's like no matter what's going on in his personal world, when it comes time to pick up that microphone and spread love and spread joy, like you would never know anything else might be happening. And he's so good at just like creating that vibe and environment. And, I think all of us are like, we learn from each other at like why something connects with people. And when you see it happen, you have this evidence of it like, oh, well, that was awesome. Maybe we should lean into that
Yeah.
farther.
Yeah, it's undeniable. I mean, what you all do with Hoop Bus, undeniable. If anyone is listening, if you have not experienced the Hoop Bus, go to New York over the next week. If you're in New York, everyone follow the Hoop Bus, of
Yep.
course, on IG. Follow Jeremy John Kaplan, of course, on IG.
There's also
Go to the Socrates.
there's Hoop Bus in Philippines, the Hoop Jeepney. There's a Hoop Bus in the Bay that is fully electric. There's a Hoop Bus in Mexico City. There's a Hoop Bus in Paris. There's the LA buses. There's a bus that lives in Chicago that's on its way to New York right now. So there's several ways and places. Obviously, if you were in New York, tap in with us. We'll be having watch parties. We have a bunch of other programming. And yeah, like I said, we have a second bus coming here. Won't get into all the details of that project, but there's something coming
You can't
around the
tell.
time of the NBA draft, which happens here in New York. So we got a lot happening. We're doing a court
Ooh,
renovation in
that
Brownsville. I'm waiting on my NYCHA approvals right now. Um, yeah, we're busy, and
so
it like
much.
I think this we're very fortunate to have all of these opportunities rolling in because this is kind of what we asked for by wanting to keep a bus here in New York. Obviously, New York has the it's the mecca of basketball. The energy is crazy, and we feel aligned with it. And I think to your point earlier, you know those moments of bringing the hoop to someone, especially somebody that says, "Oh, I haven't shot a basketball in 20 years or something," and then they see it go through the net, and somebody watches how much joy it brought them. this is David Hollander's, whole
Yeah.
book boiled down in that, like, it doesn't need to be capital B basketball. It can be, lowercase b basketball that has its value in the community just in the way that it brings people together. And it doesn't necessarily need to be deeper or greater than that. That is what we need as people. Like we're more disconnected than ever. And if there's this connective tissue, even if it's just for a brief moment, you see how people light up. Like, what is the ripple effect of that?
It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Everyone loves making buckets. There are no referees. There are no there's no time limit. You just make a bucket and you keep going and you high five someone else. It's beautiful.
Well,
Now I
we
did
tell
see
people,
something on Instagram, Jeremy,
oh, yeah, go
that
for it.
I need clarification on. I saw that there was a robot with the hoop bus at one of the locations. The hoop bus isn't being taken over and run by robots, is it?
TBD, Angela. I don't know. They're coming for my job. When that robot learns how to drive the bus and paint the murals and you know reattach the stuff in the inside and deal with the mechanics, we might have a problem. But I think we're safe for now. But no, it goes to
I
the
do.
car. Like we like a spectacle, and that we met that robot at West 4th Street. We did a Jordan Clarkson look-alike competition in Washington Square Park that was hilarious. And we then took a handful of the Jordan Clarkson impersonators on the bus to West 4th Street. And we had a little moment where we were bringing all the Jordan Clarksons off the bus, and there was a robot there. And that energy, like we're a band of brothers and sisters, and it's like, hey, if you want. And so then the robot came to our watch party. Gio might have more
That's
information on
so
who this
funny.
robot
Y'all put a
is.
shirt on the robot. The robot had a Knicks shirt on, and I'm
The
like,
Josh
"This
Hart
is
robot.
so and it was dancing. Hilarious.
Yeah, it. We
Whose
love the
robot? Like, where'd
unexpected.
the robot come from?"
The Knicks universe,
Does
man.
not
So I guess there's
yeah.
the Knicks fans are crazy. Uh, we had a guy named Che Igbo, who was with us that day, and he kind of is part of this like fabric of just Nick fan ridiculousness that, I think those that are like tuned in on what's happening in the streets of New York right now, like we really appreciate this kind of cast of characters. Uh, I think New York Nico has done a great
Yes. Oh,
job.
he's hilarious.
Yeah, of like just kind of showcasing like the oddball characters of New York City. And yeah, I guess, now that robot is one of them.
It is great. It is so wonderful. We're excited to see how everything unfolds, rooting for y'all. I know I'm in Texas, but I am so rooting for New York. It's been 29 years. New York has, and I'm not from Texas, right? But my experience with the Hoop Buzz, I have friends who work for the Knicks. I've been to Madison Square Garden is iconic. I just feel like New York, the culture loves basketball in the way that Texas loves football, right? And I'm I'm so excited to see how it all unfolds and
That Spurs team has
rooting
a
for
bright
y'all.
future, but it's the next moment. Today is the next moment
Yeah,
for
it feels like that for sure.
yeah, if they
Well,
if they
Jeremy
if they win tonight, it like we keep saying that. I
yeah,
can't they just keep rolling. But thank you so much, Angela. I really
yes.
appreciate
No,
you.
thank you, thank
And we
you.
didn't touch on PMBL, the camp in Jamaica that I'm part of the leadership
Oh,
with.
yes.
But
Yes, yes.
in our previous conversation, I had extended an invite to yourself. It's called the Friends of PMBL. It's a camp in Treasure Beach, Jamaica. Happens every August. This year is from the 10th to the 14th. It's a fantastic place where, just like the hoop bus, the basketball brings a community together, and it's one of my favorite places in the whole world. And I extending the invitation to yourself again, if you have any interest. But we're doing it every year, and yep, it's also something that I am very passionate about and helped me kind of navigate my path back to the hoop bus. So I wanted to mention that back to you because I know I didn't know if you knew I was serious, but I am serious. You are invited. Feel free to follow up.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I am so interested in going. We will talk more about that, and I'll put the link to all of it in the show notes because there are so many regardless of the level you've played, someone has played, but people who love the game, you always find your people around the game, whether it's hoop bus, the camp in Jamaica, the art installations. Basketball has a way of just keeping people connected. And it doesn't matter where you're from or how long, or it doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. Basketball, especially, it's a little different because you can just pick up and play anywhere in ways that you can't necessarily do every sport.
And when
So,
you know, right? Like, I just knew when you guys
yeah,
were walking up, like, these are like-minded folks,
it's my
right? Like, you just
people.
you know, and it's like it can be unspoken or, the hoop bus is such a magnet, and I'm so proud to be able to deal with it because like you said, like, sometimes it's people that barely have played, but they just became passionate about it in the last short amount of time, and they're, you know, so equally excited, and it's like everybody's important, right? I'm a father of 2, and, I love being able to educate my son through his experiences of the hoop bus, because it does, like, it really shows that everybody's important and everybody is deserving of joy and dignity, and we, like, really can exemplify that on a regular basis.
Yeah. See, now you're gonna take us down another path. I have to build on what you said. You don't come to the hoop bus and people say, "So what do you do?" No, like, no one asks, "What do you do for work?" You just hoop. You're there and you're hooping, and no one cares about anything else but the ball and the basket and joy and love, and we need more spaces and places like that, so I have so much love, admiration, and respect for all the hoop bus family.
Well, we look forward to seeing you soon, Angela. Come check us out in one of those locations or back in New York, or I'll see you in Jamaica. There may be a bus coming. We'll see. That could be a future project, but yeah, let's stay in touch. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely stay connected. Thanks so much, Jeremy. Have a great weekend and everything, all the links, everything we discussed are in the show notes. The show notes, the show notes. Thank you so much for checking out A Ball and a Chance and stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you. Let's go Knicks.